Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This week we're jumping headfirst into the thrilling world of cryptocurrency. Now we know you're not new to this. You've probably seen the headlines. Bitcoin having its best September since, was it 2013? Yeah, pretty impressive.
This definitely got people talking. 7% might not sound earth-shattering, not in the crypto world, but for September. Historically, that month hasn't been too kind to Bitcoin.
You're telling me. So naturally everyone's asking, is this the start of another Uptober? And by the way, for anyone who's not familiar, Uptober is this whole thing.
Right, it's the trend, historically, of Bitcoin seeing some pretty positive returns during October.
And not just like a tiny blip on the chart either, right?
Oh, no. We're talking an average of 22.9% returns over the past decade. Past performance isn't a guarantee or anything, obviously, but it's definitely exciting, for sure. So while we're all watching to see if October actually happens this year, what else should we be paying attention to in the market?
Well, Bitcoin's been stealing the show, obviously, but it's important to remember the whole crypto space is connected. And we've been seeing interesting movement beyond just Bitcoin.
Like what? Give us the details.
Well, take Ethereum, for instance. It's been on a bit of a roller coaster ride, price-wise.
Always a big deal, right? Ethereum being like the second largest cryptocurrency.
Exactly. What happens with Ethereum tends to have a ripple effect, affects the whole altcoin market.
It's like the butterfly effect of crypto. One little flutter from Ethereum and the whole ecosystem feels it.
That's one way to put it. And speaking of ripples, there's been another big development, got everyone buzzing. PayPal just completed its first ever business payment.
Oh yeah, with their stablecoin, right? PYUSD.
The one and only.
Okay, so we all knew PayPal was, kind of testing the waters with crypto, but this feels different.
Right. It's not just about a big payment processor getting involved. It's the type of transaction.
Yeah.
This was a real-world business payment.
Yeah.
Using a stablecoin, that's a step towards actual mainstream adoption.
Makes you wonder, could stablecoins be the thing that bridges that gap between traditional finance and the crypto world?
It's a real possibility.
Yeah.
And if this trend takes off, huge implications, really. But, the more widely something is adopted.
The more eyes are going to be on it, regulation.
Exactly. And that whole landscape is just as complex, just as changeable as the crypto market itself. I mean, look at Taiwan. They just made it easier for professional investors to access foreign virtual asset ETFs.
Those exchange-traded funds, right? Baskets of assets you can invest in.
That's the one. Seems like you're opening the doors to more crypto investment.
Interesting. So you've got some countries rolling out the red carpet.
Right. And then you have others, like the UAE, taking a different approach. They're exempting crypto transfers and conversions from that value-added tax.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot. Encourage innovation, but also protect investors.
A balancing act, for sure. Which, let's be honest, that's a challenge with any new tech, but especially one as, disruptive as cryptocurrency.
No doubt. It's not just governments figuring things out either. Traditional financial institutions are getting in on the action too.
Oh, absolutely. Look at ANZ. They're part of that Project Guardian. They're exploring tokenization.
Okay, so representing real-world assets digitally, using blockchain.
That's it. And then you've got companies like MHC Digital partnering with Circle. They want to bring USDC, another stablecoin, to institutional investors all over Australia and the Asia-Pacific region.
It's like everyone's trying to find their place in this constantly changing world. It's exciting, but also kind of daunting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, but that's what makes it so fascinating to follow.
Okay, so we've talked Bitcoin, Ethereum, stablecoins, even touched on the regulatory side of things. What's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, we'd be remiss not to mention kind of the elephant in the room, or I guess elephant outside the traditional financial system.
DeFi, right. Decentralized finance. Always sounds a little intimidating, but you always break it down so well. What is it in a nutshell?
Okay, so imagine taking all those financial services, the ones we use all the time, lending, borrowing, trading, all that, and rebuilding them from scratch.
But instead of going through a bank, it's all, what, peer-to-peer, powered by code?
Exactly. Cuts out the middleman entirely. And that's what makes it so disruptive. More open, more transparent, more accessible, potentially.
Okay, I get the appeal, but it also sounds like there's a lot of unknowns, risks even.
Oh, for sure. DeFi is still the Wild West in a lot of ways. Smart contracts can be vulnerable. Regulation is still catching up. But that's also what makes it exciting, a real breeding ground for innovation.
I can see why someone who's really into finance would want to dive deep on this.
It's a whole world unto itself. In fact, we'll be dedicating a future deep dive to DeFi. But for now,
Back to reality.
well, back to another complex, constantly evolving aspect. Those crypto regulations.
Seriously, every week it's a new headline, some government agency somewhere figuring out how they feel about crypto.
It's a wild ride trying to keep up. One minute it's Taiwan welcoming crypto with open arms. The next it's a crackdown somewhere else.
So how do we even begin to make sense of it all? What's the takeaway for our listener?
I think the most important thing is just remembering. Regulation, it takes time. It's a process. There's no one right answer that'll fit every country, every situation. But long term, having those clear, consistent regulations, that's going to be crucial for mainstream adoption to really happen.
It's like laying the groundwork for this whole new financial system.
Exactly. And while governments are figuring out that big picture stuff, other players are pushing the boundaries. Like, we can't talk innovation without mentioning Visa, right?
What are they up to?
They're testing this new platform, Visa Tokenized Asset Platform, VTAP for short.
VTP. Catchy. What's it all about?
So it's designed to support tokenization, but not just for cryptocurrencies. We're talking stable coins, even those central bank digital currencies. CBDCs.
Those are getting a lot of attention lately. Basically, digital versions of a country's regular currency.
Yeah.
Backed by the central bank.
That's them. And with this VTAPE thing, Visa is building the infrastructure to potentially allow transactions with all these different tokenized assets.
That's a big deal. It's like they're building that bridge, connecting the traditional financial world with this new world of tokenized assets.
That's one way to look at it. Really highlights how early in the game we still are. So much potential, but also so much we don't know yet.
For sure. Speaking of unknowns, let's circle back to Bitcoin, the big question. Will this be another Uptober?
Well, you know what they say, past performance, not a guarantee. But still, that historical data is hard to ignore. And if we do see another surge this October, big question is, what's going to drive it?
What are the factors to watch out for?
Well, always got to keep an eye on institutional adoption. Those big players, if they jump in, that could definitely move the needle. And then there's retail investors. Crypto's going mainstream, so that interest is growing too.
And let's not underestimate the psychological factor. Just hearing the word Uptober, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. People believe it's going to happen. They might start buying in just because of that.
Absolutely. And with everything we've been talking about, PayPal's stablecoin payment, Visa's new platform, there's definitely a buzz in the air. Now, whether that translates into a price surge this month, who knows? But it'll be fun to watch it play out.
You always know how to keep things interesting. But before we go full crypto futurologist, we should probably give our listeners some resources, places they can go to stay informed.
Right. There's tons of information out there. News sites, blogs, online communities. Just remember to diversify your sources. Don't rely on just one place for your information.
Good advice in general, honestly.
For sure. And don't be afraid to ask questions. The crypto community is full of passionate, knowledgeable people.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. Where do we go from here? What's the final thought you'll leave us with?
It's amazing how much ground we've covered. Always blows my mind how much there is to talk about in the crypto world.
It really does feel like every time you look, there's something new happening. New development, new challenge. You know?
Exactly. So for our listener who's clearly already pretty plugged in, already following along with this stuff, what's the key takeaway you want them to walk away with?
Honestly, even if you think you've got a handle on crypto, don't get complacent. Always more to learn. It changes so fast. Everything we've talked about today, the decisions being made, the tech being built, it all has the potential to completely reshape, well, finance as we know it.
It's not just about understanding the tech itself, right? It's about wrapping your head around what it all means.
Exactly. It's about the big picture. And speaking of big picture thinking, you know, I like to end our deep dives with a little something to think about. So for everyone listening, here's a question. We've talked a lot about Uptober and whether Bitcoin will see those price surges again. But what if we forget about the price for a second? What if instead we ask, what would a truly successful Uptober look like for the whole crypto space? Forget short-term gains. What kind of progress would we need to see in adoption, regulation, innovation to really call it a win?
Wow. Now that is a question, it really makes you think beyond just will the price go up and more about the long-term impact.
Exactly. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive. But like you said, always more to learn. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and we'll see you out there in the metaverse.